Hey, deserving listeners, 90-Day Fiancé. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. As I always say, don't use YouTube as a replacement for therapy. If you need a therapist, get one. Even if you're a cast member, of course, I'm talking about you potentially. But don't use me as your therapist. Use a therapist as your therapist. I mean, I'm a therapist, but I'm not your therapist. So let's watch.
I don't think I have any more respect.
Let me have my ring back.
Oh.
Wow.
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 No, big head.
Yeah, yikes. Wow. So the only saving grace would be that Ed is playing it up for the show because he's trying to retain his spot on the show. And half of it is him and half of it is manufactured to create drama on the show. I mean, Liz looks like she's having a legit reaction. I guess the double saving grace would be if Liz and Ed talked beforehand. Look, let's try to exaggerate a little bit. So that's the only possible good scenario here. But I don't know. It looks legit. And if it is, then yikes! Wow, just his attitude, that arrogance, and the total lack of responsibility. There's so many ways out of this. There's so many ways for him to even save face, even say a lot of the things that he's been saying and still come out relatively unscathed by just saying, yeah, I'm sorry, Liz, it looks like I lied, but I didn't lie. Or I lied because I there's so many less shady ways he could have been shady. He could have been like, well, Liz, I did lie to you. Yeah, but I lied to you because you get jealous all the time. Okay, that's pretty shady, but at least it's acknowledging reality. It's acknowledging what happened. Wow. And if you've ever had a partner like Ed, I'm guessing this is very triggering to you. Because what he is embodying in this whole conversation is so specific to a personality and a defensive structure, and pretty common, that if you've been treated like this is just a lightning bolt through the trauma center. Oh boy.
Let me have my ring back.
Oh.
Wow. No, big head.
Oh, wow.
You're a dick. You're a dick, yo. I'm just gonna say it.
Yeah, so now he's starting to cry because, again, I think at the baseline of all this is that he is terrified of losing not only attachments, but also any semblance of self-esteem, that protective, defensive veil that protects him from having to acknowledge that he is worthless and rejectable and no one will ever want to be with him. It's total speculation that it's down there, but there's a lot of evidence that it is. It explains the people who come across as the most arrogant, as the most self-assured, sometimes, especially if they're annoyingly self-assured, underneath it all is this vast sea of worthlessness that they have learned because of the way that they're being treated. So I'm guessing that he's probably going there right now. He's gone there before. We've seen him go there where the defenses are stripped away. He is being rejected by Rose or by Liz, and he just falls into the pit of despair. I think he has different layers here, though, because I think at the bottom layer of the despair is just pure despair that I don't think we've seen. But I think there's a mid layer just into the despair where he tries to come across like he'll either say that he's being victimized, but I think more often than not, he tries to get out ahead of the criticism by saying that he has problems, that no one's ever going to love him. And I think that's not pure. I think that's his version of despair, but still trying to fish for people to give him compliments. I imagine his family and his friend have seen that version a lot and tend to him in that way, and then he's able to get back up into, above the veil and above the defensive structure, into the defensive structure of I'm perfect and arrogant and everything's fine. But anyway, Kim, it's just like, Straight up, you're a dick, yo.
Oh, wow.
You're a dick. You're a dick, yo. I'm just gonna say it.
He got caught. I just want to move on.
I wouldn't put money on this relationship being over. Of the things that Liz has endured from Ed, I would put this as like a very, very low problem. You know, the problems that she's dealt with, the abuse, the verbal abuse that we heard on that phone call that was leaked. We can't know if that's real, but if it was, that was verbal abuse from him. I would call it that. And that was just one conversation that was recorded. So we could imagine that that happens a lot and had happened a lot. So I would imagine, in my gauge of things, that sort of behavior and that sort of, and at the engagement party when he's just hounding her and hounding her and hounding her, you know, convinced that she cheated on him and he's sure of it and just not listening to her and badgering her and putting her down. The fact that right now he lied about talking to Rose, I don't even think Liz cares that much. I don't think she gets jealous. I don't think I think Liz is like, well, yeah, I mean, if we were broken up, whatever. So I think it's mainly the lying and just the disregard. So not only for Liz, I'm guessing, not only is it just about the lying. I mean, maybe it's a little bit about jealousy, but mainly it's about the lying at first. But then the dismissiveness and the arrogance that he exhibits towards her, I think, is way more concerning than any kind of contact with Rose, right? But like I said, I think this on the scale of things that she's endured is pretty low. Now, maybe it'll be more enduring in her mind because it happens on television and is in front of everyone, and other people will, you know, say, oh my God, I can't believe that I saw that. Even Ed's friend, because Ed's friend is still sitting right there, and maybe Ed's friend will go to Liz and say, wow, I had no idea that Ed could be that way. But honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Ed's friend has some kind of odd take, because I think the family members and friends often do. But maybe it's just odd to me because I don't know the full situation. But yeah, I would guess that at this point of, after the tell-all, I would guess that Ed and Liz are still back together.
Liz, Ed, I'm not exactly sure what to say, and I don't know what the future of your relationship is, but I hope there's some healing down the line. Thanks so much.
Okay. Yeah, you just feel bad for Liz. He just creates the whole problem. Like everything is just generated from him, and Liz is just, I mean, just think about, in terms of what we saw over the number of seasons that we've seen Liz, has there been 3 seasons with Liz? I think there's been 3 seasons with her. I can't remember a single moment in which Liz was absolutely responsible for any significant amount of the conflict. Now, behind the scenes she might be, and maybe I'm reading it wrong, but it's tragic, 1, and 2, hard to watch when you just see one person, Ed, generating all of the problems. He's the jealous one. He's the, I don't know if it's cheating is the right word. He's the shady one. He's the lying one. He's the arrogant one, smokescreen person, doesn't listen, talks down to, feels superior, calls names, you're immature. He's the one doing everything. And Liz is just putting up with it, trying to get through to him. You know, she'll react to it in ways that aren't, I wouldn't necessarily say super differentiated, but under the circumstances, I understand. You know, when she, at the engagement party, just bolts in her wedding dress, or was she in her wedding dress? She just bolts from the engagement party and starts walking down the sidewalk and then throws the ring in someone's front yard. I could see myself doing something like that, given the scenario, given the onslaught that I think she's been through with him. You could identify that as like, well, there are more mature ways, more healthy ways of dealing with it in the moment, but I think it's hard to expect that from someone. Anyway, so you just feel bad for her. Yeah, I feel really bad for her. She deserves someone. She's had a lifetime. She said this before, that Ed is the best partner she's ever had. And if that's true, which I think it is, given her account of her previous marriages. Oh, she deserves so much more, so much better. Now, I'm sure she has some rough edges to her personality that would annoy anybody, but given the onslaught from Ed, we never saw it because she was always dealing with something else. So, I'm guessing that she has some, problems in the way that she deals with things, but it's just so tragic. And I'm guessing some of you are even like Liz in this way, that you've had a lot of trauma. Well, I'm not only guessing, I know some of you are like this, where you grew up with a lot of relational traumas growing up. That's totally unfair to you, totally unfair. You deserved a secure, safe, supportive, loving environment growing up, and you did not get that, and that's not your fault. I don't know who to blame. We could blame your parents, your caregivers. We could blame your grandparents for screwing up your parents. We could blame your great-grandparents for screwing up your grandparents. We could blame society and war and famine, which will often put families under so much stress, or refugee situations that will lead to parents being too stressed out to be attuned to their children, and then that gets passed down through the generations. We could blame governments and systems of power, sexism, racism. But at the very least, you deserved it. You deserved safety and security and self-esteem and attunement and love. Liz deserved that. She did not get nearly enough of that. And then you, as an adult, have a string of relationships that are abusive and problematic, and you have glimpses of love and attachment and support, but it's quickly dashed as things like this happen. And then you're upset and half crying and half angry and half demoralized and shutting down and checking out, and you're just staring at the floor like Liz, saying, how did I get here? I will never not be here. And with therapy and with the right people, those two things, with therapy to get to know yourself, get to know your defenses, get to know your worth, and heal, but also surrounding yourself with people that are trustworthy, that are worth your trust, that you build that with them and you pursue those kinds of people. And it takes time. For me, I was raised pretty well, and you could argue that since I was born, people have been helping me to develop this or cultivate this, but I've also been cultivating relationships. I'm still friends with people I went to preschool with, and every day of every week, of every month, of every year, I've been putting effort from my side into building those relationships with my family, with my friends. And because I was raised pretty well and didn't experience much in the way of mistreatment from society or otherwise, there weren't a lot of barriers to me developing those relationships. And at the age of 52 right now, I have a number of relationships that I'm still working on, to develop and to deepen and to build and to communicate to, that I need them and rise to the occasion when they bid for needs that I can meet in them. If I had to start that I started that process when I was born. If I had to start that process at the age of 25, after I finally get rid of the abuse in my life, or 35 or 45, it would take me a long time. So some of you might be in those shoes where you've known and you've been working on things for 10, 15 years, but you still don't have as much support and as much attunement and attachment security as you need to have. And you're like, I'm a failure because I've been working at it for 10 years and I still don't have it. I must not be lovable. It's hard to develop secure attachments and ongoing relationships with people, because aside from a few select close people in my life, there's a lot of other layers to the onion, and the circle of trust as it goes out, if you will, the different circles of trust. People will kind of phase in and out. There will be people that there are people that are really close to me that don't phase in and out. Although even there, you could say that some people will be very, very close to me for a period of time, and then maybe they're just very close to me for another period of time while another person becomes very, very close. And it could even just be 1 week where my wife is not very, very close to me, but she's very close to me. And then I'm going through a bad time, and I don't want to, I need to start spreading around my needs. And so I'll get someone else that could go from very close to very, very close to me. Does this make sense? And so I get my needs met through this friend like Bob or Umberto or someone, or my parents, so you can have that. And I say all this because you deserve that. And Liz deserves that. And I don't think she has that. And it would break my heart if you or her thought that you were doomed, that Liz was doomed to never have that. It takes time. It's worth it. Every step of the way is worth it. And I'm not ideal. I don't pay attention to my needs enough along these lines. I pay attention to my needs a lot, but I don't pay attention to my needs enough such that there are times when I'm like, oh crap, I haven't really been alerting people to my needs, and now I've got to, and I'm suffering because of that. I'm alone with my feelings, or shutting down, or avoiding, or something. So I'm not perfect, but given my privilege, I have a pretty ideal zone of this. I'm in a pretty ideal situation, I would say, compared to people that I talk to in my office and in my personal life. So I'm not saying things are perfect, but what am I saying? I just feel bad for Liz. I feel really bad for her, and I hope that whether she stays with Ed or not, I hope that she can develop those deep, secure, safe, loving, connected, dedicated, loyal relationships that she deserves, and you do too.
I'd like to thank you, Rose, for coming and talking with us today. I really appreciate it. Good seeing you again. Rich, thank you so much for coming and sharing your thought.
Yeah, you just see that face that Ed gets. It's just this arrogant, above it all, superior face that he gets. Like, well, there she goes. Everyone's ridiculous.
Appreciate it. Good seeing you again. Rich, thank you so much for coming and sharing your thought.
And I have to say, I don't know if I've ever had this much countertransference towards him. I don't think I've ever had so much negative feelings towards him. Sometimes I wonder if my radar is off, because sometimes, like right now, I'm wondering if my radar has been off the whole time, because from the beginning, people have hated Ed. They have hated him. And I've always been like, I don't hate him at all. In fact, I see a lot of positive qualities, and I still do, and I still don't, and I don't hate him, of course. Well, not of course, but I don't hate him. And usually when I'm in that zone, I'm just like, well, people on the internet, or that's why they watch these shows, so they can vent their feelings that I imagine a lot of the cast members are objects of displacement of people in our real life that have hurt us and have traumatized us. And so we displace all of our anger and hatred at those real people in our lives towards cast members. And I think Ed is a perfect canvas upon which a lot of people, or a screen upon which a lot of people will transfer and displace and project, for that matter. So I would always just chalk it up to that. Just like, well, there's a difference between how I'm vibing with Ed and other people are. But then when stuff like this happens, I'm like, well, maybe everyone else was right and I was wrong. Because I have my lens, and I have my bias, and I have my distortions. And so I wonder, in these moments, I'm like, maybe everyone else was right and I was wrong.
I don't even know what to say to you, honestly. I mean, how do you feel?
I'm really pissed. He goes, give me back my ring. I didn't want to hand it back, but he asked for it.
That was low.
And I know our situation's crazy, like living separately now, but it's been the best our relationship's ever been.
Right, there we go. I was predicting that this was not the end of their relationship. So, yeah, I don't think Liz in her mind is like, that was horrible. I mean, she's probably saying that's horrible, but she has gone back to him after much more horrible things. So, yeah, I imagine that she's still in the relationship.
This is not how I expected today to go.
I was pissed, and I just sat there and went, oh my God. So yeah, I'm like, I'll take the ring. It probably wasn't appropriate, but.
Yeah, so I think in the past, when I would hear this sort of thing from him, where he'd be like, I probably wasn't appropriate. And I think I would hear that as differentiation and taking responsibility and self-awareness and insight. But he doesn't seem to exhibit actual insight and actual self-awareness outside of these kinds of statements. So I'm not super optimistic when he says things like that. All right, well, if you want to get merch, you can click the link below. You can also get me to do a cameo for you, a shout out for a birthday or happy holidays or anniversary or just even a hello or something. Only if you want to, of course. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.